Welcome to the Insurance Buzz. This is your host, Michael and Courtney Weaver. We have a special guest with us today, Mr. Jeff Shi. Jeff, how are you today?
Good. How are you? Thanks for having me on.
We are so freaking excited to have you on, my man.
Oh, and you said you're on your fourth cup of coffee, so this is about to get real fun. I love it.
Peanut butter cold brew from Dunkin'. Yep.
I love it. So Jeff, you've been in the industry for quite a while, over a decade. You have an amazing resume, but I always like to know, why did you originally get into insurance?
That's a great question. So I was in the car business, and nobody planned to go there. I just stumbled into it. So well, my business, and then 2005, and got in the car business. And then my first year, I did well. I was making six figures my first year, and one day my finance director, I was at a Cadillac store, right? And my finance director asked me to come join him in his office. And I thought, well, my deal fell apart. So he was like, hey, you remind me of myself. And I was like, oh, well, we're the only two Asian people in this entire dealership. That's probably why, right? He was like, yeah, he's in his mid 50s at the time. His name's Mr. Lee. And he was like, and he took his glasses off, right? And then when people take the glasses off, the conversation about to get serious.
Yeah.
And he said, I would recommend you get out of the car business. And I was like, why? And he said, my biggest regret. I was like, oh, it's going to get serious. He said, my biggest regret is I spent 20 years in the car business, weeknights, weekends, holidays. I'm here working with you. I have three sons. I miss all their sports, all their growing up. I make $250, $350 a year, but our hours for sales are 9 to 9, Monday to Saturday. Some dealership even open on Sunday, right? We were lucky ones that didn't open on Sunday. But the thing is, just because you're closed at 9, it doesn't mean you leave at 9, right? There's a myth that some people believe they get better deals at 8:55 if they walk in that door. So there's plenty of days I come home at like 11:45 and then get up the next morning and then be at the dealership at 8:30. It built a backbone of work ethics, but at the same time, it destroyed marriage, right? If you look at the top 3 divorce industry verticals, accountants, law enforcement, and military, and people work in the car dealership. So, and then he said that, if you want to have a good marriage or, being a good father, at the time I just had my kid. So he was like, you need to get out of the car business. I was like, wow. And then I was like, where would you go? Where would you go if you was in my shoes? And he was like, I would look at 3 industry, and insurance, real estate or mortgage. And in specific real estate, I actually like commercial real estate better than residential real estate. And then I asked him, I was like, which one have a higher ceiling? And he said insurance. I was like, why insurance? And he started telling me, because when people buy Escalades and these high-end Cadillacs, they fill a credit application, right? And he sees what everybody make. And he was like, well, if you enjoy sales and you enjoy working hard, build insurance agency for 7 years, and then you can start playing golf. I was like, well, I don't play golf, but I would love to spend time with my kid, right? Or my kids. And that's how I fell into it. And my first 3 applications after that come to Jesus meeting with Mr. Lee was go online and apply randomly. I applied with State Farm, Nationwide, and Progressive. And Progressive called me back that says you need 5-year experience, go sell captive or sell under aggregator. Nationwide didn't call me back. And State Farm did. I met this wonderful lady named Lynn Orlip from Virginia. I think she lived in Virginia at the time. She was a State Farm recruiter, and met with my wife at the time. After 3 meetings, we realized it wasn't the right timing. A little bit later, save us some money, and at the time I was spending more money than I was making. Right, I was young, 2005, I somehow ended up with $2.2 million in mortgage, just like everyone else in the mortgage industry. The jumbo loans, they were so easy to get. And I was like, I need a bigger house. I need a bigger house. 2008, had a divorce. Everything fell apart. And then Lynn was like, oh, you have a short sale. You can be a State Farm agent for the next 10 years. And then I called Allstate. And then Allstate was like, we take you. How much saving you have? I was at 140,000. They're like, okay, we have a scratch program. Would you be interested in the scratch program? I was like, sure, I can sell. So that's how I ended up in the industry. Long story short, that was like a 5-minute explanation. But yeah.
Gosh dang. So it was not an easy road by any means.
No, it was not.
So in 2008, did you essentially start over? I mean, your house is gone. You go through a divorce. You're starting over. I mean, what is your mindset going into your agency career? Like, what does that feel like and look like for you at that point?
2008 wasn't the starting point. I got in at 2011, but 2008 was a wake up call when everything broke down. Right, so I had a 7,200 square feet, $1.2 million house. I had a divorce that changed that trajectory of my life. Had 2 other business that was pretty much closed down. And then that was on top of my primary business. So at the time I was making like $250,000 a year. But at the same time, I was also spending faster than I was making. Learned a lot from the whole debacle of the financial crisis, and spend the next 3 years recover financially, and also went through a funk, went to AA. If you want to find God, you're not going to find Sunday church when everyone's happy and sane. You want to find God, you go to AA when everyone down at the bottom of their life. You really find some people get in touch with God, and they will talk to God. So anyway, trying to rebuild my life again. And then 2011, my life was back to the right trajectory and got into insurance with 0 customers. That's my life.
That's incredible.
That's when the front start.
No, I love that you say that, because I've heard that before, that you meet the highest version of yourself in hell, not in heaven. Like, that's where you're called to who am I actually and what's important. How did you build yourself from 2000? How do you go from 2008 to 2011? What were the steps that you were taking?
Good question. Well, it was one day at a time. I was drinking a lot. So the first step of my life change was stop drinking. Mm-hmm. I was doing close to half a bottle of vodka to end my night. And, my day usually start after work at the bar. And once I realized I had an issue, it was easier to go from there. But you'd be surprised, when someone's not drinking, they have how much clarity on life they have. And at the time I was a young father, single father, and I was pretty motivated, right? Any father out there who care about family, and then you're like, no, that's not what my life's supposed to look like. Mm-hmm. There is a version of my life, what I want it to look like, and I'm not there, and I have to get there, right? So just one day at a time, really just work on rebuilding my financial and what it looked like from debt standpoint, and rebuilding the credit.
That's it's quite that's an amazing 3-year just advancement, growth, and obviously today you've had wild success in the insurance industry, but I've got to know, did it start off like that? I mean, we were also scratch agents. We understand how difficult it is going into it, but how was it for you? I mean, did you just come out of the gates rocking and rolling, doing millions of premium a year, or?
Yeah, I mean, now that you have this clarity, and I can understand going through moments of life where you're leaning on things, that coping mechanisms that aren't healthy. So when you have this clarity, how do you turn this all around? And to Michael's question, that success in the beginning, was it there, or was that step after step, just like you kind of rebuilt from 2008?
No, it was, everybody have a high vision of themselves, what their ability is. And then when they get thrown in the water and you have to swim, and you learn things fast, right? So a couple of challenges I had come on the gate. What I did not realize was Virginia was 48th cheapest auto premium in the country and 43rd cheapest homeowner premium in the country. And that started with a company called Allstate, and they were number 8th in market share in auto. Just think about it like this, right? Allstate is a very big company. At the time in Virginia, there were 7 companies had more market share than we did. So we had a multiple battlefront. One, the premium wasn't there, and 2, the competitive close rate wasn't there. And then the third battlefront was probably the most challenging one. It was the one that I could control, right? There's things you cannot control, and there are things you could control. And the third front was I had very small amount of experience in leadership. Like I have a lot of experience in what I don't want to be as a leader because I have had plenty of bad ones and plenty of good ones, and I take learning experience from them, right? But I was always a lone wolf, having your own business and is different, right? And also being a salesperson is also different. For example, when I was a salesperson, at one point I averaged 42 cars a month when other 19 salespeople averaged 8 cars a month. So I was a lot more motivated and resourceful than they were and maximized every single minute I had. But to be a leader, I think there's like 2 ways to be a leader. There's a hammer and then there's a pillow. And the best way to be is know how to use both and be in the middle. And I was the pillow, try to be their friend, but later on I find a way that they don't listen to me, and now I'm pulling out the hammer, and they're like, "Whoa, who's this guy?" Right? Mm-hmm. So it's a lot of learning curve, and also, I've been through things in life. Like I grew up in a rough childhood, been stabbed twice, and worked at nightclubs, seen plenty of fights. But the most nervous I've ever been was answering my first claim call because I had no idea what I was doing, right? So, fear wasn't something I'm used to because I'm used to challenges in life and living in a challenge environment. But to go into something where I have no clue what I'm doing, that brought out fear, and you can't operate life in fear.
Yeah, that's a different level of fear too, of like, okay, especially somebody who's had to overcome. I mean, at this point, you talk about your childhood and going through, like, you've been able to pull yourself out of these environments, and now you're just throwing yourself into something that you're there, sink or swim. Like, there's no other option. So I love the hammer and the pillow analogy too.
Yeah,
I mean,
I do like that. So how did you? Because obviously you went from. So how many years did you have like a smaller office, and then all of a sudden you like scaled big time? So kind of walk us through that transition, because in my experience, that's the hardest thing for business owners to do in general. I don't care if you're in the insurance industry or not, is that scale piece through people. So what did that look like for you?
Yeah. So, if you, as a financial planner, if you had, life insurance license or security license, you plan your customers' retirement, right? You like, if you want to retire at age X, you have to make sure you have Y amount of money in your bank account that can produce X amount of retirement income. We do this every day for a living. But how many percentage of insurance agency owners are planning their exit, right? By this exit date, I wish I have X amount of money in my bank. And that means I got to have X amount of premium in my agency. This way, though, so I can sell for X amount of dollar, right? Like for State Farm, I think it's like retirement model, 20-year vetting process or something like that. I don't know the State Farm model. I'm just guessing. For Allstate, nationwide farmer agency, they had a captive book they can sell to their agents. Independent agency, they can sell on the open market, right? But everybody got to know their exit number, right? You got to know your exit number. So this way that you can reverse math, right? So let's just say my plan is stop selling at the age of 52 years old, and I got to have X amount of dollars, and that X amount of dollars means X amount of premiums. So now I start reverse engineering my math. And then now I'm like, holy F, like I am way off the pace, right? And walking to that door, like we used to have market meetings, and some guy who had $5 million book, he would be the big shot in the district or in the market. And I go back a second, right? So when I got in the car business, I never made more than $53,000 a year. And to make $100,000 was like something I didn't even think about. My first year goal was 70,000, and I ended up making first year 118, and not even a full year. So I didn't have the proper goal. Without the proper goal, I wasn't properly able to dream. Without properly able to dream, you weren't properly able to vision. And then my manager, Anthony Cancel at the time, told me about this guy named Danny Doherty. Danny from Alexandria Cadillac, right? Danny was the number 2 Cadillac sales guy in the country. He did it through work, skills, and resources. He was making like $470 a year selling cars, right? And the story that he told me, I couldn't believe it. And then I realized, wait a minute, this is a guy that he oversaw as a manager. So I started engineering how I can get there, and then my trajectory growth path, making 180 next year, making two something, and how to plan to get there. So I started the same process as an agency owner, and first I started talking to the guy that have $3 million book, listen to their story, how they got there, and then $5 million guys, and then $7 million guys, and then each way, as I talk to a new agency owner, there's a new story, there's a new path, how I got here, this is how long it took, how many book I bought, how many organic growth, and how I got there. And, every time I hear a new story, there's a new plan start working in my head. There was this one guy, $22 million book in Charlottesville, very respectful guy, super sharp, super smart. And he shared some of the stories. He did it through acquisition, right? And then later on, I met another guy, in Delaware, doing $5 million new business a year. So a lot of different strategy, and I put them all strategies all together between acquisition strategy and organic strategy. And so I started a second agency, organic, scratch again. But I realized what I did wrong the first time. I didn't have enough money to go into it. I had 140,000, but they burned fast and then burned through a lot of mistakes. So the second time I did this thing called BLOC, business equity line of credit, against my revenue and against my book of business. And I pulled 250 out. And that was allowing me to build the second book a lot faster. The first book, after 3 years, I built up to $3 million. The second book, in 2 years, I built up to $4 million. And then the third book and the fourth book, I purchased it from 11 million and then grew that to 13 million in 2 years. And then the fifth office was $5.5 million in first 5 months. And then the fifth office, I pulled off $350,000 against my book of business. The goal is never spend your own money. Always leverage, right? Mm-hmm. If you look at all the real estate people out there, residential real estate, short-term rental, long-term rental, storage units, shopping centers, apartment complex, multifamily units, whoever it is, all the teaching is leverage, right? So, I think leverage is a thing that nobody teach in the insurance world. And I put together 8 pillars of how to build a successful insurance agency. And I was invited to speak in front of 600 farmer agents in San Diego this past year. And on the stage, I said 7. And later on, as I talked to more people, I came up with 8, number 8.
Now what are they?
If I had to run on the top of my head, you guys can count with me, make sure I don't replicate or duplicate anything. So the first pillar is cash reserve. Make sure whatever you want to build, you got to have enough cash on hand to match it, whether it's savings, loans, whatever. The second pillar is cash flow. So if you are in Kansas, I don't know, your homes are expensive, but your autos are cheap, maybe right into Oklahoma or Missouri to help you offset your cash flow because Missouri have high autos, especially Ferguson, St. Louis. In Missouri, 1850 home average is higher than Texas, right? Oklahoma is high on everything. So, these are some of the little things, right? Because our success between each other, let's say me and Michael, we both start at the same time. We probably had the same skill set and same ambition, same work ethics, but the difference that separates us could be really 1 to 2%. And those 1 to 2% are not cheating, but true advantages that you can give yourself. So entrepreneurs need to look at all the advantage they have, and cash flow is always overlooked. How do we create a little bit of cash flow so this way that, let's just say I have 5 producers and each one of them have 8 hours a day, that's 40 hours. How do I maximize their 40 hours, right? And then those 40 hours, what do I want them to do that maximize their 40 hours? And then what activity do I have them do maximize their cash flow per 40 hours and per activities? And then you start thinking about what state do I want to sell them into? And then you start offsetting the close ratio versus the premium returns. These are all the little things, right? And then, captive agency models, like some have this thing called enhanced comp. Farmer have through the retail program, also have a thing called ADB that move to ECP. Basically give you additional compensation on top of new business written. On the independent side, it's different, right? Usually they call it override. Some are 3 to 7%. Depends on the state, right? High loss ratio state don't get them, low loss ratio state do. And so everybody have different programs. So you just got to understand what my program is in what I'm doing today and how do I maximize the lever. So that's number 2 on the pillar, cash flow. Number 3 is recruiting. This is an easy one, right? We all as good as people we have. And number 4 is training. I didn't understand training until I went to another agent in Pittsburgh. He's one of the smartest guy I know, Mr. Pittsburgh himself. And, we had similar training process. We had similar everything. But the only difference is he had it in writing. It was a book. It was a binder for this, for that. So later on, when I started going to scale, you come into work your first day. You check in your desk, 8:59. At 9:01, what you're going to be doing is already printed in the manual. 9 to 10, you do this. 10 to 11, you do this. 11 to 12, you do this. You shadow with that person, and this person's name is who you're shadowing with, and then who's going to test you on what you shadow on, who and what kind of test we're going to give you is all in the binder. I took his binder and I built it on top of it. And, number 4 is training. And people think there's training, just listen to some videos. Training is so much more. Training is really shadow and repeating process. There's a YouTube channel called 10,000 Hours. It talk about like if you want to be good at anything, you have to do it 10,000 hours, right? And it's really come down to that. And also you have to learn from the people who done it 10,000 hours. Number 5 is leads and marketing. I talked to some agency owners say, I got direct mail, I got internet leads, I got live transfers, I got this, I got that, I got B&I. I'm like, you are average at everything and good at nothing. Some people, I just recommend them, hey, my first agency, what I did wrong was I try to use every marketing model I can hear. And that became expert at nothing. So some days I still feel like I am expert at nothing, by the way. I decided I'm going to go all in on internet leads. So that's where I planted my flag, made my bed, and I want to be really, really good at it. There's no way to skin. There's no same way to skin the cat, right? Like everybody have their ways, and I can tell you every way probably work if you're the best at it. And what I chose was to figure out the digital portal. So it's given me the fastest way to go to scale. So number 5 was marketing. Number 6 is technology, right? That's a very overly used word, technology in the agency world. Some of the stuff I see right now is freaking scary, right? The AI stuff that's out there. And, Liberty Mutual is definitely playing with some stuff. Allstate is too. And there's a lot of carriers that are super behind. I see that on the performance media side. Um, um, AI data, AI texting, AI telemarketing, that's all out there. So if you are still an agent, hire people to just come in and dial yellow books, you're behind. You're behind the eight ball. And then a lot of people say, hey, it's all about, they brag to me and say, hey, my salesperson make 2-hour calls and 300 call times. I'm like, well, you're just burning payroll. One thing about Geico and Progressive, their omni-channel, their call center that really understand this specific thing is because their average call time per day is 6 hours. So for the agents to compete against that space, your number one expense is not your marketing. It's not your internet leads. It's not your live transfer. It is your payroll. Mm-hmm. And if they are not on the phone 5 hours, you're burning. Your business failing. So that's something that I always try to remember. Some people look at my lead spend and I'm like, well, wait till you see my payroll. Right. So that was number 6. CRM is very important. I know a lot of carriers these days are restricting their agents on CRM. We're not going to call out any names, but it is probably suppressing their sales by 20%. That's how much I believe in the difference it makes. Number 7. What was number 7?
7 was CRM's technology. Yep.
Yeah. I have to come back to 7, but number 8 was something I just came up with is time. How we maximize our time, how I maximize my time as agency owner, how I maximize my time as a supervisor, how I maximize my time as a salesperson. It is a skill. It is a skill set that a lot of us don't learn. Like we can feel super busy, like didn't have time to go eat or go pee. You ever have those days? Mm-hmm. I have plenty of those days. And then when I look back to it, I was like, what did I do today? Mm-hmm. Like, did I use my time the most to my ability to make me the most efficient? And it's something that I probably had a smack in the face learning curve the past year running my own agency again. We all start falling in love with this remote model because we can find people fast of working from home. But if we didn't think we maximize and use our salespeople, our office people's time efficiently before when we're in the office next to them, it looks pathetic and sad how remote work efficiency has gone down the drain. How you manage your time is how you leverage your data, your lead spend, and your payrolls. And that's probably the hardest one to get to. I'm still trying to figure out what 7 is. I tell stories about these things, but I have to come back to it.
No, this is great. So I love every aspect of this, and we could dive into every single one of these. I'd like to touch base on your last one though, because I think that's one that I think everyone struggles with, including myself. So what are some things you do, like practical applications that you do to make sure that you are maximizing your time?
So there's some people can be super focused and work, and they can get 4 hours in, and they will outwork the person in 10 hours, right? So in Asia, not in America, in Asia, there's a thing called 996. As a child, grew up in Beijing, China. I came here once 11 years old and naturalized citizen at 13. I remember those days because kids go to school between 7 a.m. to 6 p.m. 6 days a week.
Wow.
And then people don't understand the Asian culture, how, they got out of poverty so fast the last 20 years, especially China, South Korea, and they all did it, right? Japan was in the ruins from the war, right? Asian culture, biggest superpower, secret power is grandparents. All the grandparents live at home with the parents. So while parents are all working, the grandparents are the second teacher in the community over the children. And imagine getting six days in average 9 to 10 hours of education, and then come back and have grandparents to mentor them continuously. But this is going on as a culture on 1/3 of the global population for the past 20 years. And then when they grow up to compete in the space, for example, in China, you had to learn English as second language just to graduate middle school. Imagine we tell our kids, hey, you had to learn Spanish as a second language just so you can go to high school, just so you can apply at high school. Our success is our expectation, right? If we think we can sell, 100,000 a month, 100 apps a month, then we can. If we don't expect it, then we don't. That's just the way it is. And the Chinese, Korean, Japanese, they all prepare their children to fight the next war, which is the economic war, right? So, they equip with them English speaking skills, right? And then they go to workforce, and then their culture they walk into is 996, which is 9 a.m. to 9 p.m. every day, Monday to Saturday, and 6 days a week. But, I got off subject completely. Just so
this is great.
I'm on my 4th cup of coffee. But recently I started practicing this. This is a mentor of mine where I'm, reaching out and getting consulting on myself. The effects of dopamine is something that we don't know. We will not know for decades. We don't know how it affects us. We don't know how it affects our kids. And I have my iPhone surgically attached to me, right? So every single day, I'm opening my door to like Twitter, LinkedIn, Facebook, Instagram, Snap, TikTok, just dopamine. And then you don't get the best version of yourself. And, some people, you ever heard of the COVID mind or COVID fog, things like that?
Mm-hmm.
Is it really? Is it really because I took some jab and next thing I have a COVID mind, or has it because social media and phone time and screen time have exploded post-COVID? Right? I mean, before you had to drive to office, you brain gets a break. So if your brain constantly thinking, now it's cooling down. And then after work, you get to drive home, so your brain get to cool down again, and you have a break period. But now all of our office, all of our desks are 3 feet away from me, and then we are integrating with our phone more than ever. So it just, nobody's really doing enough on what dopamine effect is on us. And, this weekend, I purposely hide my phone in my room so I don't touch it.
Mm-hmm.
And I changed. I became like mellow, quiet, chill. I was like, this feels really good. Like I have clarity, but, go back to your answer about control time, because I just ramble on.
No, this is great. This is great.
Yeah.
Like, just imagine if we challenge ourselves and all the people that we work with, what dopamine is really doing to ourselves, and how much better efficiency we can all be doing whatever we want to do if we lower our dopamine intake.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm. No, one thing I learned from Courtney actually is my phone's on do not disturb all the time. I don't get notifications from social media. We have ultimately set times during the day that we check it.
Yeah, because I was having a hard time. Like my attention span, has gotten shorter. And so if my phone is there, the algorithms have changed to where, I don't think we're designed as human beings to see a sick grandmother and then a puppy getting rescued. And then I don't think that we're capable emotionally to handle all of that. I don't think that we have that wiring.
There was a study I saw, TikTok helps me everything, right? Since 1973, sperm count has gone down 60%, right? And you look at all the developing country where all the synthetic sugar is very common in all the aisles. Like fat-free was a thing that somebody just made up to sell us more stuff, right? Fat-free is not real. fat is actually good for us because our body's searching for fat or sugar. If it's not finding fat, it's going to find sugar. So anyways, so think about it like this. I tell people like our natural human evolution, we're 1.0, and sugar in food is like 1.0. And later on, we find concentrated sugar in sugar canes, right? That's 2.0. Synthetic sugar, 3.0. Synthetic, different level of synthetic sugar concentrated, that's 4.0. And we have aspartame, that's 5.0. And now we have this poor little human being still on evolution 1.0. And same thing with our mind, right? So our mind and dopamine, good news, and sex, that's 1.0. Like, where we at on the scale right now? Like, I keep on getting off subject, but I just thought about something that when you said corny, when you mentioned your wife, there got to be like a husband and wife podcast or panel or podcast or inviting other husband and wife who are both in the insurance agency together and talk about how they handle the daily life of what's allowed into the homes in the house and what stays at work and how to balance that. I bet you if you guys do a couple podcasts, you guys will find many, many successful couples who run agency together, come on that thing and talk about it because it is a juggle.
Mm-hmm.
It is.
Yeah, because we got married February 1st and we opened agency April 1st. We went scratch. And so our entire married life has been this dance of, adjusting from personal life into professional life. And just like you said, what comes in and what doesn't come in and that turn off. But I think something that we've been really adamant about is the boundaries of like what you're talking about right now. Like, what are we putting into our body and what are we communicating about? And how does that really affect, how does that affect us as, married people first? Because that's the most important thing that we have is our relationship, because everything else stems from that. If our marriage, if we're having a bad day as a couple, our business feels the effects of that. So I think that would be so much fun though.
That would be a lot of fun because it wasn't always like that. Like
No.
In the very beginning, we had terrible, I would say, balance or boundaries or whatever. And so, you're spot on with that.
One of the biggest things that helped me being successful is if I look back on my career, every time I took a significant leap in growth, there was someone I met that inspired me or showed me something that I end up reverse engineer. Like, I'm a pretty quiet guy, usually at a bar, I'm like the quietest guy at the bar, but whenever someone's talking, and especially when you do start winning trips, you are starting to surround yourself around smart people. And I would recommend any insurance agent, make sure you go on those trips. Don't ever sit at home because the key is meeting the people who are smarter than you and have the humility to listen to the people who are smarter than you and try to learn from them. I'll contribute a lot of that to some of my success.
How do you know? I think for me, I struggle a little bit with what idea do I action and what idea is like, that's not for me.
Ooh, that's a broad question. I don't know if I can answer that question in one thing, but at the same time, like, just make sure you look in the mirror, right? Like the power of the mirror, know who you are, know what your skill set is. A lot of people, they don't build themselves around their skill set, right? So if I'm a mellow person, and I'm not aggressive enough to hold people accountable, then I need to hire somebody that's opposite of me to run my agency. And just say, hey, I'm not good at running my agency, but if I have the money, the disposable income, I need to hire somebody who is better than me at running my agency. And then, it's sometimes a pride thing, but sometimes, find somebody who is better than you at your weakness, right? So, did I answer that question?
You did, yeah. The play to your strengths.
Yeah, and also make sure delegate. If Michael's job to look good for the agency, and then his job to look good, keep him looking good, and make sure that there's stuff for other people to do, right? So just everybody know their strength and know their weakness, right? Rich Dad Poor Dad, Robert Kiyosaki. The power of the gold, the power of the sword, and the power of the mirror. That was one of the things that I always took away from the power of the mirror.
I love that. And this is so good.
I do want to ask, because we've kind of dove into so many different things and I took so many notes, but I know that you've been in both the captive and the independent side of things. In a brief stint, I would love to hear the differences or the challenges in each and how you've kind of navigated both of those, because you're getting back in, and I would love to hear kind of your take on, both of those and why you picked one over the other after going through them.
Oof, you know, captive and independent. So there's good time and bad times, right? Like, you know, some of the things I observed in 2022 when we looking at the highest inflation, highest loss ratio, you know, competitiveness, State Farm has been taking 2% rate in some states when some other carriers are taking 20, 25% rates, right? So, where they're buying business, but they're allowing agent to survive. You can get a lot more return on your marketing if you're able to be in a place where you can survive. I evaluate every opportunity by looking at the compensation model. If the compensation is high up front, that means this is a build and flip model. If the compensation is low in the renewals or high in the renewals, that means this is a buy and hold or buy, build, and flip down the road. After 11 years, I'm not sure if I'm building something for 10 to 15 years. It's hard to tell. And, a lot of agents, they need to understand, like, hey, if I have today to cash out, I can exit today at today's number. You need to really evaluate it. I was a little bit stubborn, in my 9 years as captive agent, just wanted to get to 20, 20 get to 30, 30 get to 50, 50 get to 100. And, I saw it when I reached $27 million premiums. But I look back to it, I probably could have got a lot further and faster if I just built and sold every single agency. And it took a lot of sacrifice, right? At one point, first 7 years, I didn't pay myself more than 45,000 a year. And I remember, didn't go on dates, was single for like 5 years. And I finally went on a date. And, I was renting a townhouse that was 1,400 square feet. My monthly rent was $1,800, 3 bedrooms. And then 2 of my roommates had no idea what I really did for a living. And, we're splitting utilities among ourselves, and then brought my date back to my place. She was like, you have 60 employees and this is where you live. It was basically saying, like, am I bullshitting her, or or
Like a
do I?
catfish? What's happening here?
Yeah, am I being catfish, or am I really successful in what I do, right? I was so focused on building all in on one sector that I didn't look at any other revenues or sectors or business I can develop myself in. And we got to be a lifetime learner. We got to continue to develop ourselves, whether it's Bitcoin, whether it's landlord, short-term rental, Airbnbs. Mm-hmm. And then also, if you have a business that is worth value, you always got to consider, at the end of the day, I'm not doing this so I can answer a billing call or claim call 30 years from today. I'm building this to feed my family. Mm-hmm. And I'm building this for exit, and we need to continue to have the most important thing, like to walk into a room, know where the exit is a very important reminder constantly. And we got to have a group of friends who constantly remind us, right? Like my wife, whenever my wife and I fight, she always remind me, hey, stop. You're on team us. I'm on team us, right? And we need to go back to the basics. So, doesn't matter which model you follow, captive model, independent model. At the end of the day, it's the same thing. Like, one's a little bit more complex than the other. I think captive model is great because it's faster scale between enhanced comment and learning just one product. And then independent model, a lot more complexity. But if you in that model for the long run, the returns is pretty good, but you have to be super patient. That's one thing I learned.
Okay. Man, I love that. Building to feed your family and knowing your exit. That's good.
This
I
has
was
been so great.
random thought. No, I mentioned Bitcoin earlier. I was the first person on FINRA to put OBA off Bitcoin.
Really?
Yeah. When I asked the person, I was like, hey, I want to buy some Bitcoin. Do I need to put on my OBA? They're like, you're the first person I ever asked us that. I think that was like 2016 or 2017. I can't remember.
Bitcoin is an outside business activity. Oh, hell yes.
Right. I wasn't sure. I was like, is it an activity? Is it an asset? What is it, like a stock? What is it? Right. This is like 2016. So, but
Okay.
I cashed
Gotta love
out
those
early.
OBAs, man. Gotta love
The fact that you're doing Bitcoin in 2016, I'm like, damn. Okay.
A buddy of mine turned me on it, but I definitely didn't buy enough as I should, and I definitely got a little too early.
Well, I don't think it's going anywhere. So
No, it's
at
still
least I
future
hope
money.
not.
Nah,
I hope
future
not.
money.
No, Jeff, this is. I feel like we could continue this conversation all day long, but we want to be respectful of your time because we know you're trying to grow an agency. And so, Jeff, if somebody wanted to reach out, wanted to get in contact you, or maybe follow you on the socials, I know we're connected via LinkedIn. You put out a lot of great content. I've got to tell you that. What's the easiest way to follow you or get in touch with you?
I would say follow me on Jeff Shi on LinkedIn. I'm more active on LinkedIn. LinkedIn probably filter 95% time versus Facebook. They probably filter 99% time. So I know that every single one of my posts is reaching out to 5% of my following, pretty much on every post for the first 20 minutes. And I'm pretty easy to reach. So if you want to follow me on social media, send me a message, we connect.
Okay. Well, Jeff, thank you so much.
This has been great, Jeff. Thank you.
Yeah. Hopefully next time we can do this in Kansas City, and I can check out the barbecue scene.
Oh man, you know where the best barbecue in Kansas City is?
We will take you.
Where's that?
Right here in my house, baby. Oh, Jeff, brother, this has been great. If you're in Kansas City, definitely reach out. For all of those listening, thank you so much. If you enjoyed the episode today, make sure you give us a 5-star review. Share this on the socials. Connect with Jeff. As always, we appreciate you. Time is the most valuable and important asset that we all have. We appreciate you spending time with us today. Jeff, thank you again, brother.
Thank you.